like it was just too important to ease people into the tale is so absurd already. They're going to follow this creature, this monster, that we really need to be rooted in the emotionality of that journey, and also for it to start with Predator stuff, Predator weaponry, Predator aesthetics. That being said, I always like it's actually nothing in the beginning. The beginning is actually further away from anything we've actually seen in a Predator movie before. It spiritually feels like it's the most Predator on, because we have 3 of them on screen and we're seeing their spaceships, and yes, it's a lot more Predator stuff in it. But what we've seen in the franchise is an invisible creature and then it decloaks and it's stalking humans and killing them, you know? What our opening is like, you know, a Conan film or something, you know, or a Star Wars, you know, it feels very different, but it spiritually is so connected to delivering the aggression that you expect in a movie in the Predator genre. Yeah.
And on top of that, also is like the difficulty was because Deck, so our main character, you know, is a runt. He's like his defect for the Predator. So, and also top of that, he's supposed to be like some kind of a teenager, which, you know, everything goes a little bit against. It serves very well the story, and to see, you know, like a rite of passage for, you know, to talk about that. But also it's for like the big fans and everything. Starting with that can be, you know, look a little bit unbalanced. But I think there is a big reward after that to see, like, to stay so long with the Predator and see how it can change. And I think like going, you know, teenager to adult is always like a big thing to really witness. So and I think Dan did a very good job. Like, as you said, Sheldon, like starting with this, those scenes, like, okay, why now you don't think about that right there. It's only, you know, like, especially in the fight in the cave and all of this, it's like, it's very Predator-like, you know, they're strong, they're fighting, they have all the weapons and everything. And it's after that, that you start really understanding what it really is.
Carl, did I see you were about to say something?
Yeah, just to add to that, there's, you know, we do, like everyone's been saying, we do, you know, some very aggressive Predator action, and then the tone, you know, the texture of the film kind of changes, and you have moments where, like, Deck is pulling there's the sequence where he pulls a glowworm sort of, and that starts to, you know, expand and throws it away, and you know, we get a little reaction out of Deck, and you could, like, watching in the cinema with an audience, it's like the first time everyone laughs, and it's almost like permission to laugh, and everyone sort of, you know, so that another stage of empathizing with, you know, a creature that we've been taught from the 80s as this fearsome thing, you know, creature of horror. And so, yeah, that was part of our journey, because it was frankly, you know, terrifying in some respects, and for me, that we have to make this creature that we've all, you know, seen since the, you know, 87 Arnie flick to be, you know, an empathetic, something you want to be on this emotional journey with. And so it was very rewarding to see the audience respond as they did.
And I'll point out, it's thanks to you, Carl, that there's a laugh there, because we showed, you know, we've shown the movie a million times leading up to finishing it, and for all the times when it was Demetrius's face in that moment, it never got a laugh, because it's not, what's funny about that moment is seeing a monster have this, like, oh, I'm impressed by the explosion look on its face. Less impressive when you see a dude do it, because we've seen that kind of expression in humans before. But when it's finding the right way to articulate that, what Demetrius was doing as Deck, which is what Carl and team really perfected, made it a real, not only funny, but also a moment that we can like bond with him. We really see ourselves in him in a different light. So it's what's so scary about this endeavor is we really did not know what the movie was until we got, you know, closer to the end, because it's a totally different thing once you see Monster doing all those things.
Absolutely.
That was the scary part of it. Is like basically if we couldn't get the monster working, like with the emotion and all of that, the movie, you know, wouldn't work. So the day where we nailed that down, basically, like that was a big day. We're like, okay, we got that.
Yeah.
And definitely it's like you know, Carl and Weta did a great job like experimenting and everything, because it's like it's very complicated. It's just like, you know, you have this anatomy that is like so different from anything else. And at the same time, it's like you want people to be able to identify themselves to that, which is like crazy when you think about it. And it was all about like, you know, the thing like trying to get that consistent throughout the vendors. Basically, I remember like the first thing that always happened is like the mandibles moving way too much all the time. And that was a big thing that we worked on. Also, like what are they representing, you know, when they talk or when they emote. And so it was really like trying to find this finesse on how to animate that. So it's like it's not too much, it's not, you know, but it's enough. It's just that was really the complicated part.
Absolutely, and just to add to that, it's one of the, you know, the great traps of CG is that you can do anything, but it doesn't mean you should. You know, it's finding our limits and finding our language of expressing these emotions and yeah, finding a language that works for the film and bringing it back. And so many times, you know, an animator wants to over animate, so we have to like, yeah, bring it back in. But we've got a really amazing team here, and
we even tried to do like some kind of animation that was a little bit at the beginning, like a little bit animatronics like. So like just to see how far we could go back to this, but eventually it was like, okay, you can, you know, I know like people love animatronics and I love animatronics as well, but it's like there's no way we could have been as fine as what we ended up with if we had gone with the animatronics on this. That's I'm absolutely sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I have two things to throw in since you sort of gave me an open segue. I love the guys at Weta. I'm not even embarrassed to say it. Carl and Sheldon and Eric and Keith, like they brought so much to the movie. But I do want to point out we had a lot of other vendor partners who were great. And I feel like in some of the press about the movie, unfortunately, they've gotten, maybe they haven't gotten the notice they deserve. We had, you know, Trickster did a tremendous job on it. Weta took the lead, and Weta established a lot of the visual language and the animation language of what the characters would become. But it's a big challenge to follow that and translate it to another character within that opening sequence. And it's worth remembering that this took a giant team, and it also took Dan and Olivier on top of that team to make sure everyone's predator looked the same. And that is, you know, was Dan's concern from the beginning that we had to keep in mind. And it was a big part of the job, making everyone's predator, everyone's bud look like they belong together.
I agree with that. Sorry, Olivier, I'm just about to give you guys. Go ahead. I'm about to give you guys some credit for that, because I honestly wholeheartedly really support that statement. And it's, to me, and us at Weta, but as a whole of visual effects, like you always care about the fact that your product, your movie, your project at the end is coming across wholesale as a, you know, as a solid product that everything works. You know, if you have just one thing, a scene, a sequence that just stands out, the whole thing can fall apart. And it's there where I think it's important to remember that all the visual effects vendors, you know, we over the years develop obviously relationships with them, and there's always collaboration and trying to help each other. And I think you guys are holding this together, and you guys are steering that ship. So credit to you. And when I watched the movie, I was super over the moon and surprised and happy how amazing it looked across the board, you know, not just for our work, but everyone else's.
I do think there was some pretty tremendous collaboration between the vendors.
Yeah, I was good to say.
Carl was super generous with other vendors coming on to talk about how to animate the Predator. We had little animation summits among multiple vendors to talk about Bud and Bud's emotion and what Bud's backstory kind of is and what Bud is thinking when Bud's doing something, which it sounds a little crazy, but it actually helped make Bud better. That we all talked about what the the finger again, but the motivation behind what Bud was doing. Somebody help remember all of our vendors: Trickster, ILM,
ILP,
ILP. Who am I leaving out?
Framestore.
The Yard.
Even Capital did some 2D stuff. The Yard, like everyone came within 1,000%, and they were all collaborative 1,000% with each other, and sharing bits of their work in a way I've never really seen. Sharing lighting setup, sharing look dev, sharing, we had assets from Weta on the phone with other vendors talking about how they layered the shaders and how the different pieces came together. I've never seen anything like that on a movie. And to that extent, also is like it wasn't just like, for instance, Weta creating something and then distributing everything. Sometimes it was going the other way, and this is why also I feel like this teamwork, like sharing with all the vendors and all of that, and the back and forth and communication was so important, because then I think it just made the characters like just better. It's like each time there was a little bit improvement here. Oh, we're using that as a reference. We're sending it back to Sheldon, for instance, and then Sheldon was working on something. We're distributing that to the other vendors. And same thing for the animation with Carl and the other animation supervisors. Just this back and forth was like, was great. And I mean, and then was like during reviews, pointing out, oh, that's great. It's like, I want to see that more, it's like, and then so just sharing again these new references, and just at the end, it just made the movie just way better. That's another good segue, because I'll give credit to the production team too, because our team has to be, our team and the editorial team has to be really on top of as things are changing and as things are the preferred look, making sure everyone sees it, making sure everyone gets the right pieces, talking to everyone's vendor. This is a group effort in the best and most unusual way.
And just for one last thing that if I can add, that it sounds strange, but you don't often get directors who want to be involved with visual effects from as much as Dan has been involved. I feel like a lot of times we work on films, and you might you might not talk to the director maybe once or twice the whole time, or maybe not at all. And I feel for the last 6 months, every day Dan was available and to give notes and feedback and talk directly to us, which helped everything just run smoothly, and it was great.
I didn't know that was an option. Oh, I could have. Yeah. Hang out with you guys.
No, that's the way it should be.
Crazy. It's crazy. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
It is hard to believe, but people do it.
I mean, almost your whole movie is visual effects then. So
that's true. Yeah.
Kathy, I have to thank you for bringing up the other vendors and the production team, and just highlighting the teamwork that went into making a film like this. That is really lovely. So thank you for that, and also for setting everybody off in ping-ponging. That was great. Thank you. I wanted to get to a question from Hector in our audience. Aaron had a similar one. Hector says, watching Genna felt like the sci-fi version of a nature documentary. Did you study or research wildlife footage to create the movements, personalities, and facial expressions for the Genna creatures?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely.
It felt like a nature. I would say I'm so heartened to hear that it felt like a nature documentary. The hope is that if there was a feeling of authenticity, and if the world felt like it evolved into what it is, and the ecology all lines up with all the different components. And then the other part of it, Olivier, was like, did we watch any real animal reference? And Kathy aggressively said yes, which is ironic because Kathy is like, I don't know, a farmer. Kathy's like an animal specialist. Every time I would reference some crazy alien piece of iconography, or what if we had a thing that moved like this, like that? Kathy's like, oh, that's like a rum beetle, or like a a wild bull, or whatever the heck, And Olivier also, I mean, I'm sure everyone, but Olivier would find these awesome references for real world, bizarre looking creatures.
And at the same time, it was the same thing. As like that was a full teamwork there, because we're always trying also like to find some kind of background for each creature, so it doesn't come from nowhere. Where it's like, okay, why is it like this? Oh, it's because you have the Luna bug like in the trees, and it's supposed to be hidden, and we had the whole thing on how it basically hunts. But same thing is like, I mean, I received like a Dan, like on Instagram, just sending me a random thing. It's like, oh, look at that looks cool and everything. It's like remember the thing you sent me, like this kind of like insect, like that was like super weird thing. So anyway, it's like, and it goes from from anybody, even from the production team and the vendors, and it's just like this constant sharing, trying to find what would be the best for the movie, but definitely something that is always a little bit grounded in a way that's okay. Yeah, I understand the story. Like what it could do, what that is, even if the shape of it is completely crazy.
And we had a lot. I think almost every time we saw early animation from a vendor, we saw some. Either we did, or Weta did, or Trickster, that another animal came with it and sometimes honestly you needed a roadmap to get how you went from hippopotamus to bison, but they made sense, and there was an inspiration in this sort of movement, or the callus. You guys had lots of big cats and bear references. The kind of weight that the animal carries, and the sort of aggressive action, and it made it easier to understand the characters and then interpret them and take them further, because you understood who they were at their core, and then you could kind of move them forward without betraying that.
And just to make it more complicated, it was never like one reference for a creature. It was like multiple. It's like depending on the action. It's like I remember we'd call like, okay, this is more like bear, but here it should be more like lion, or here it should be. So like transitioning animation depending on the action for the creature. So definitely not something very, very easy.
No, absolutely, and just speaking to the callus, it was a lot of bear and big cat reference, and but also looking to our film history, with Jurassic Park and things like that, and the callus, when it sort of rips into the power loader at the end, it's really leaning down on top of it, and there's a couple of quick shots, but it's very inspired by real life, bear reference, and you just need to start with that grounding to as a leaping off point. Otherwise you can make stuff up, but you need if you've got a solid basis, at least we've got something to start with. And
I think you can think of visual effects as a little bit like a remix, right? You kind of find all these different pieces, and then you sort of really sort of mix them together where they suit, and where you get the characteristic and the aspects from it that you like. But at the same time, what I always love about it, you always try to ground it, and you find the weirdest things that you never heard of, right? And this is sort of what you were alluding to, Dan. It's like you stumble something that, oh my God, this really exists. And it's kind of cool, because you constantly learn, and you find new things, and that inspires, and is still grounded, even though it's bizarre and weird and no one has ever heard of it.
I mean, the flora on Gena is really inspired by like things that exist. It's just like we had a full-on reference like early on from the art department, all of that, and we just like, for instance, just taking something that is microscopic and then just make it like big, for instance, and here it looks already alien. And I think that at least you get like all the all the different parts that are, oh yeah, that makes sense, but you feel you never seen it before.
Do you guys have any examples of these things? It was mentioned that, Dan, you were sending Olivier things on Instagram that you found were particularly odd, that you couldn't believe existed. Do you have any examples of those things that made their way into the film? Things that maybe we've never heard of, would be surprised they made their way in there? Carl, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, there was, I forget the actual name of, is it the silkworm or something worm? And it was the Callisk's tongue reference early on. I remember I wasn't sure how much of a thing the tongue was going to be in the early days, and we found this reference of this the silkworm creature, and it could just look like a normal, disgusting sort of long worm, and it would shoot its tongue out, and all these other parts would come off. These filaments would come off, and we use that as the inspiration for the Callisk tongue when it shoots and wraps around deck, and there's some horrible stuff that comes off that, and we shared it around dailies quite a lot, and everyone was appropriately disgusted and built it and made it look amazing. Yeah.
Aaron, on this subject, Aaron from our audience says, what was the most challenging part to bring these creatures to life? And were there any other types of creatures that you thought would have been interesting, cool, wonderful to have in the film, but didn't actually make it into the final picture?
And I know we did a lot of concepts, like just exploring just for the Callisk itself. Went like all over the map until Dan really refined, his vision on what he was seeing. But I mean,
definitely was cool. There definitely was one or two that I was like, oh man, I wish there was room for that. I mean, by the end, we found space. We crammed a few in at the lesson. But I do recall there being. I mean, frankly, I loved. There was a creature in the animated movie. They called the Backbiter that I really wanted more of in that movie, and we found space for it in the holographic display when we're looking at the different planets and the different prey that are on those planets. But it's soft focus; you can't even see it. And I wish that we'd been able to do more with that one. But I know that there's a bunch. We had documents of like all sorts of designs.
The whole difficulty is like you don't want to, at some point we probably have like creatures that are very different from each other. So it's like there is no mistaking on what is what. And for instance, the Backbiter could have been like too close to the Callisk in a way. So it's always, there's like you have to choose what works for the story. And I think that was the main idea, is like having all those creatures that are very different from each other, and they have their moment in the movie for the story.
One thing that I love so much about this film is the fact that, you early on introduced Genna as a quote unquote death planet, which sets up a certain kind of expectations. And you fulfill those expectations. You fulfill the wildest fantasies that go along with the death planet. You have even over the title card where it says Predator Badlands, you have that wide shot of Genna, and it looks totally evil in so many ways. It looks like a death planet. And you actually let your imaginations run free over the course of the next 90 minutes of this film. And it's like, it's wonderful to see how you were able to actually fulfill expectations and then surpass them in so many ways and keep upping the ante over the course of the film. The sequence when Deck crash lands onto Genna, that oneer, is such an astonishing shot. Olivia, I see you snickering. What is the snicker for? Was that particularly challenging?
No, it's like the first shot. The first shot we started, the last shot we delivered, kind of.
Well, tell us about that. I would love to hear from conception to post with VFX how that scene evolved and what went into that.
I blame Kathy for at first. This is like literally the rhythm of how this movie got made. is Kathy saying we had the sequence where he's the ship is going to crash and he's got to eject and whatever, and Kathy was like, can you do it in less shot? Like it was going to be done in a more traditional way. And she was like, well, what if you did? And I was like, yeah, I could do it in less shots. They'll make it a oneer. And we'll do it in one shot.
That was like 2.5 minutes
it was like,
long.
we had to build the, we never really had to build the exterior at that moment in time. It was like to build the exterior of the ship and to see the planet and all those elements, like that's money. So what if there's a way that you could, and then so that became like maybe one of the more expensive shots. I don't know, you tell me, but yeah,
is the beauty of Dan Trachtenberg, that he can solve a problem like we don't want to see the outside of the ship by making a 2.5 minute long shot, the most challenging thing in the movie.
But I'm glad you did, because it is a really cool moment, and it's one that we kicked the can. Like I remember our AD saying we have to have a meeting about that. And the solution was us, Olivier, I, and Jeff Cutter, the DP, were gonna grab an office chair and go on the stage and figure it out. And that was very simple. Wouldn't take that long. But that just kept moving, and we never got to it. And I looked at my phone. I had this video of us on the day of actually shooting it when we built the rigs and all that stuff. And we have a little model of the thing, and we're arguing about because the rig that we have could only move horizontally, but we have to create the effect of us wrapping around and falling downwards. And I'm like, I throw the chair. I'm like, see, it goes like this, and I throw it up in the air, and I'm like, see how it wraps around. And Jeff's like, that's not physical, like we're all like arguing and trying to figure out literally in that moment. But we eventually just really followed the narrative and did figure it out, and then and shot all the elements. And then Weta, being Weta, doing what they always do, they said, we'll just recreate the entire thing CG. And I'm glad, and then we got to plus up everything and make it all. The rhythms of it are all the same, but they made everything so much groovier. And also, the other thing that really makes that shot come alive is the sound design. There's some incredible moments that are really crafted by sound, and there's incredible stuff that Weta did that could have gone unnoticed, but the sound really brought it to life. And so it certainly was all things coming together, but was all instigated by the innocent comment of,
oh yeah.
Did we save money here?
Right. I mean, despite Dan's maybe faulty memory of the whole situation, he does bring up a good point that the sound really brings the movie alive in an exciting way. And I remember the feeling of seeing, we had seen the movie for so long without the sound effects, and the first time we saw it top to bottom with the sound, it was a whole different movie. It brings you in so much, and then the score on top.
Yeah, the music on top. Yeah,
you can't look away from it at that point.
And I have to say, right after that oneer, we get Carl, I think some of your work, we get some of those vines that appear in the background, which is such a great showcase for what you did for this film.
Oh yeah, that was like everything on this film. It was each sequence was a journey, every shot was a puzzle, and it was it's lovely to see it all, and it all plays when you see it all put together in the cinema. But yeah, it's surprising how difficult to wrangle 12 angry elephant tree vines and the right choreography and be in the right place and sever them all, and got to give a big shout out to our other VFX supervisor Keith Hurft on that one as well. Like it was I think the first sequence we started working on at Weta, and was potentially one of the last ones as well. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was the sequence turned over.
Yeah.
Before we finished shooting, it was the first sequence we turned over.
Yeah.
It took a little longer, fair to say, but it is often the case, right? It's like when you start with the first sequence and you're still trying to find your movie and your characters and everything around it. Often, it's not unheard of that it does take a little bit longer. I think it's fair to acknowledge, but the elephant trees were tricky. They were difficult to orchestrate. Like, how do you set them in there? How do you make them appear right? We've been around town on that subject quite a lot, how we can increase the amount of detail that we're imposing on them, but also how they embed into the environment. You guys shot some beautiful plates in New Zealand that were, a great canvas, but obviously we needed to not only interact with them to make them feel, plausibly embedded, but also augmented with some, alien plant and mushroom things. So, there's a lot that goes in there. And once you kind of start opening that can of worms of like, oh, change a little bit here, where do you stop? Because this line constantly grows. And bigger business.
Yeah,
and I would argue there's a number of tree as enemy things in movie history, and from the Ents to what have you. And I think that the team found a really cool way to have them move with character and distinction, and it's harder when there's more. Same thing with the Callus, like it's become with the increase in fidelity that we've gotten over the years with technological resources and learned tricks from previous jobs. Also comes, there's so much awesome. It's so much harder to make something feel new and cool, and it was a terrifying journey to be on, but these guys all knocked it out of the park and found iconic movements and imagery and aesthetics to all of these things, which is now they made it harder for themselves on the next movie now.
It is amazing, Dan, as you're pointing out, how instantly iconic, how original these creatures and the flora and fauna of Genna are. I love that comment from Hector in our audience about how it's like watching a nature documentary, because this world is so fully realized. It's a testament to all of your work. One aspect of this film that we've not spoken about yet, we've spoken a lot about Deck, but you have this wonderful performance, the dual performance by Elle Fanning, who has proven herself once again to just be one of the best actresses of her generation this year with this and Sentimental Value. Nadezhda from our audience says her bottom half was quite like a separate character. Was there someone to play that bottom half on set, or was it a full CG element? How did you execute that?
Both things are true. So there was her stunt doubles that for all the needs of the movie, but certainly during the leg sequences that were sometimes kept and sometimes replaced to make move in a more distinct way or cooler way, or do things that would have been physically limiting, in real life.
I mean, another good segue to mention our stunt team, because they were also a big part of making the visual effects successful. They were a big part of, Dan wanting Elle to be real and the connection between Elle and Demetrius to be real, and that took stunt rigging, and it took a really creative stunt supervisor to come up with ways to make that possible. And it's multiple ways, and they never stopped kind of iterating and inventing ways to make that better or make it possible in a different terrain. And that's one of the things that makes the upper half of Elle so successful.
Even like on the side. Now, I was just wanted to say, because all those different rigs, basically, that sometimes we even used no rig at all. So Elle had to mimic, being carried by Deck in some moments. Even like there's a moment where Deck is grabbing her, putting her on his shoulder, and she doesn't have any rig, so she's just mimicking the wall weight situation, and she was great. Same thing when she is like in a trench, trying to, to move around when she's only half body. And so we work together on making sure, like for like where the weight should be. It's like we watch a lot of, videos of people that unfortunately don't have the half bottom parts, and see like how the weight and what would work there. And she was great at it, like making sure, she's always has like at least one hand on the ground or something like this, and not, leaning forward too much or backwards. And so this is what brings basically the gag there.
We've spoken a lot about her relationship with Dec over the course of our conversation tonight. And something that really impressed me immensely about this film is the extensive use of close-ups, whether it be in the action sequences or just sequences in which they're sitting around talking to each other. It brings home the humanity of these characters, and I think it allows us to empathize with them far more. I can also imagine that for you, VFX team, having so many close-ups of Dec's face proved, to be a little bit challenging. Did that, Dan, I would love to hear about your methodology behind using so many close-ups in a film like this. And VFX team, what challenges did using that many close-ups, especially on Dec's face, cause for you?
It's ironic to hear you say that, because on the one hand, I hadn't considered that. I don't know if I'm subconsciously doing that. But the irony is, when we saw, there's a few moments in the movie that when we got them early on that are the real wide and close lensing on Dec's face, and it looked remarkable. I was like, oh no, we should have done more of it. I wished I had done more, because it's a different degree of fidelity when you're really up in there, and I was bummed, because it was so cool. I was like, oh man, I wish I'd shot that way more often. But yeah, I don't know what was challenging for creating all that, Sheldon.
I think for us, it takes it back to the conversation that we started earlier. Is like less is more, right? So when you have a close up on a character, how do you keep it alive, right? Because it's not at that point necessarily that you see like very expressive dialogue or anything. Oftentimes you are seeing a very sort of subtle, still, quiet moment of Dec's face and stuff like that. So it's sort of the moments of like keeping those moments alive and keeping the audience there, and still have this sort of plausible feeling that he's just there and you can relate to him, right? That's that. It has two ends of the spectrum. One, obviously, Carl, less is more. You still have these subtleties in the motion, even though it's barely perceivable, but it's there, and that's sort of what I think is important to kind of keep doing to kind of keep them alive. But then there's the technical execution of like, you want to have all the accuracy, all the photorealism, all the things that make him relatable. The eyes are a big thing. We talked about those ones leading up to this point a few times. And oftentimes the question was like, did we keep the eyes from Demetrius, to sort of have that grounding and stuff? And now I wish I could say like, yes, but honest answer is no, because we replaced it digitally, and entire face was basically digital, and that meant our eyes were important. And I know there were design choices to kind of have an eye that is relatable, in its design to some extent, but in the execution, you want to really feel like you can connect, and that again, this is something that we do, is part of our craft, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. And every time we do this, it takes us a lot of time to really get right.
And on top of that, like especially in close-ups, what we noticed is like the lighting situation was really changing the way we were perceiving the deck. So like how the material was reacting to the lighting and all of that is like, so we had to do like some kind of an extra pass in all the shots, trying to minimize some portions that were like maybe reflecting too much. We call that like the pale patches, basically, that were like really showing up in certain conditions. So having to do that, and as an extra pass, just to make sure that for everybody it feels like it's the same, the same creature all along. But and also to emphasize, like I think like the work on the eyes was like really successful, because I think this is where it's like you could really feel like it was alive, and all the vendors basically succeeded there, and it's probably like one of the hardest thing to do. Like having this little movement, that when you look at a person, you're looking at one eye, you're looking at the other eye, and so on. So you have those little macro movements, and it was represented in there, and that really brings Deck to life.
And the cheeks, just those teeny little movements in the flaps of his mandibles, and like just when was that too much and when was it not enough, and that was a huge part of making sure he was always alive.
And Carl, you should really chime in. I'm stealing your show, but there's one thing that I would like to point out, because it's really so important to understand. Because of the anatomical differences, right? There's no way that you can have a computer-driven solver that translates that automatically, and then you run simulations and you get all of this sort of physicality for free. Everything you see on screen is essentially an artist interpretation, and it's an artist-driven. It's keyframes, it's handcrafted, and all the subtleties that you're just pointing out, Kathy, is all part of fundamentally of this, facial rig that we're building. And please, Carl, take over, because it's your domain.
You lost the sound.
Oh
no,
Carl.
No, it's so interesting. I can read the lips.
It still looks good though.
Carol, can you hear us? We've lost your
I
sound.
think he can hear us, but we don't have his. I think we just we just don't hear him.
Anyway, Carl's team was amazing and really doing this.
Well, I want to hear from Carl.
And everyone else.
It's not like we didn't try to find a way to have the human face drive him. We tried all sorts of things. We tried having the eyebrows push the mandibles. We tried the cheeks movement relating to the rest of the face, but none of them gave you the face you wanted. The only thing that gave you the face you wanted was Carl and his team and Sebastian and all of our animation students actually going in there and making it live.
This is the thing that I really wanted.
Oh, sorry.
No.
No, I was going to say, like, it's sorry. That's like that was because we still have the actor, and we're super lucky with Demetrius because he was like so expressive. So any emotion, like very little things, you could really see it on his face. So it was very useful. So at the end, the goal was trying to mimic what he was doing and recognize Demetrius in there. But as Shadon said, it wasn't as simple as just like, okay, when he does this expression, this is what Beck is doing. It was a full interpretation of that. Yep. But at the end, you can still recognize, like if you have the plate and you have the final shots, you can recognize Demetrius through that.
I was going to say, this is what I think is the really tremendous endeavor and what Sheldon and Carl and the teams with all the vendors should be so proud of, was the amount of people that come up to me and then ask which shots were prosthetic and which weren't, and like, oh, wasn't it, it's so cool that you kept the whole thing alive with the prosthetic stuff. And I cannot believe that we really pulled the magic trick off for them. But so often, and the Weta team could speak even more to this, but when we see an emotional performance like this, when we've seen it in movie history, from Gollum to the apes, and have been blown away by it, they are still very humanoid faces. And the Predator creature, designed by Stan Winston in 1987, James Cameron's idea to give it mandibles, thanks James, was designed to be frightening, was not designed to be emote. It does not have eyebrows. It does not have a nose or a mouth. Its teeth do not let the mouth close. Really challenging to take what Demetrius was doing and deliver it. And there's moments where I know what Demetrius did, and I see how they accomplished it. And sometimes it felt like one-to-one, even though I know it could not be. And sometimes I see oh my God, you did this to articulate that emotion. And it's such a beautiful example of high craft, high artistry on all fronts. The performance of Deck is human generated entirely, you know, but entirely generated by the human in that suit, and the humans on computers typing in things and moving their mouses to manipulate whatever to articulate emotion. Really, really beautiful. And just I just have to underline the challenge that they made look effortless, but really, really had their work cut out for them, and I cannot believe how well they landed the plane. Yeah.
But I mean, amen to that. Couldn't have said that better myself, Dan. Carl, you were. Can we hear you now? Oh no, we can't hear you. Oh,
hilarious! But at least you look good.
I know he looks great.
Because we love you too, Carl. Yes.
The final shot that I want to focus on with you guys is actually there's two. There's one where Demetrius and Elle fall out of the tree and they land right near the ground. One of my favorite shots in the film. Then immediately after that, he chops down the tree and starts running across it and makes that wonderful jump. Can you all talk about executing those two shots from inception to execution?
So yeah, Dan came up with the shot.
I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he actually, the chopping down the tree, it was going to be something else, and I think what else was it going to be?
There's a time.
Oh, he chopped. It was going to be he chopped down the tree. The tree fell, and then he ran alongside it on top of the razor grass. And I think it was our friends over at the studio that said, "What if he chopped it down and he ran up it as it was falling down?" And then, or they said something almost like that, and then of course we took whatever nugget they said and ran with it, and then concocted the insanity that it becomes. But I mean, it's one thing to have the idea; it's another thing to make it look cool.
Yeah, those were our friends at ILM.
And another good example of our partnership with the stunt department and Elle being a good sport, because that's really Elle there. So
yeah. Because we're talking about the two shots, so there's one where he's sliding, Dan, like the one sliding with the sword in the tree.
Oh, is that what you're referring to when they're sliding?
Yeah, where it slides right down.
I didn't know that you were talking about that.
Yeah, it lands right near the ground.
Oh, that the studio tried to cut. I'm not going to give them credit for that.
Oh, really? That's one of my favorite shots of the film.
Just in our initial, Kathy, you remember in our when it was just previs, and we were just trying to get the shot count as tight as could be, and then there was an idea of like we could lift this entire section, but I thought that was just too cool. There's no way. We have razor grab. The fun of like Tom Cruise falling on in the Mission 1 and doing that with Elle's eye coming really close to that blade of grass, and
not only did we not cut them, Dan, we made it longer.
Yeah.
And we added a whole new section.
What? I can't. I think my audio is cutting out like Carl's. I can't. What was that?
And we can hear you perfectly. Kathy, can you repeat that?
That's dumb.
But yeah, so this shot was shot on stage with prop and everything, and the same thing, like kudos to the stunt team. And Elle, because that's what Kathy was referring to, is just like she was. That was like the harness and everything to go down the tree, and all of this. Like that was that was a big day for Elle for sure when we shot that one.
Fun. I think she had fun. I think that was on a Six Flags ride. Yeah.
Well, we hope she had fun. I'm glad that we're closing off on that, because it's interesting to hear that the studio in previous tried to cut that one shot, because that is the one shot the couple of times that I've seen this film that consistently stands out to me. So
it's awesome.
I'm glad that you guys were able to make that in.
To be fair, it wasn't a vendetta against that one shot, but it was part of the intent.
I'm glad that you guys prevailed, and I think that's a nice positive way to close us off for the evening. thank you all for being here tonight. This has been such a fun way to close off our year. You guys have been so wonderful. I love the way that you all bounce off of one another. I just appreciate you all being here and being so candid tonight.
Thanks
Well,
for having us, man.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody in our audience for being here tonight, and also for our next two encores tonight and on Monday. And to everybody that has been here for us over our, I believe we've done 63 Q&As this year. So thank you to everybody that's been here and supported us this year. Thank you to all the studios, the networks, the publicity firms, the filmmakers like you guys. We would not be here without you. So I'm very, very, very grateful. Quick announcement as to what we have upcoming before we go. We return on January 5th with Clever Mendonça Filho and the team behind The Secret Agent. We then have Cover Up. We have something else that's to be announced. We have Wake Up Dead Man with Ryan Johnson and Bob Doucet. We have Clint Bentley and Parker Laramie on Train Dreams. We have so much excitement coming up in January. All of our Q&As are free, largely courtesy of the studios. They are at theqagency.com if anybody wants to register. We are at the Q&A Agency on social media. Good night, everybody. Dan, Carl, Kathy, Olivier, and Sheldon, thank you again. Happy holidays and Happy New Year to you all.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
All right, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's always great to hear Predator. It's a big movie right now. Always good to hear the work that Dan Trachtenberg has done in his studio with his team, giving us fans of the Predator franchise, what we've been asking for. It looks like they got a lot of things, coming. It looks like they're going to be bringing a lot of things. So it was good to hear him talk about it. Listen, please make sure you guys like and subscribe. It means a lot. Just being able to be in the rooms with these people or be on the Zoom calls with these people and hear from some of our favorite movies. So check out my page on YouTube and check out all the other things I got on there. So look, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys on the next stream.